nip slip. Hot damn. It's going to be an active class today. You guys almost got it for free. Show a little tip, get a little tip, right? That's what they said when I was whitewater kayaking. All right, anyway.
That's the YouTube views.
I know, it's what the viewers are looking for. Anyways, I'm so sad that that's on camera. That goes straight to the Blackmail album. That hurts. All right. So for YouTube's sake, hello everyone. This doesn't ever get old. My name is Bryan Arri. Welcome to Spirits Distilled at Fern Bar. Thanks for being here today. So today we are going to discuss Highland tequila, and then as per the usual, I've prepared a little soapbox to go on. Today's soapbox is going to reference 3 different books. If you have ever been curious about what we were reading when we were looking at doing Fern Bar, these are 3 of many wonderful books on agave spirits, but I will cover these a little bit later. I'm actually going to read a few excerpts, especially if we get to a point where you guys are like hungry for more knowledge and we want to go deep on it. But that'll just depend on how much tequila we drink and how that makes you feel. So today, let's go ahead and get into the wonderful world of Highland tequila. So, Chantel Martineau, I hope I'm pronouncing that properly. I'm so sorry if I'm not, but I'd love to meet you in person someday. Had a excerpt from their book on how the gringos stole tequila. This is one of the very best books if you ever want to learn about the subject and really go deep on what tequila is, what mezcal is, what the intercommercial trade looks like between US and Mexico, as well as then problems that are facing the category. This is a phenomenal book. But Martin was saying that during a professional tasting, they had the opportunity to sample several different kinds of tequilas, both Valley and Highland, compare them side by side, and they were able to identify terroir, right? So what is terroir? Does anyone want to take a stab at what they think terroir is? Staff, it's open to you guys first, but wait for a second.
The ground.
The ground?
Dirt.
Yes, ground, dirt, climate. What else? What else? All of those things. Little other bits and pieces, right? So today we're going to be covering terroir, specifically Highlands, and what it means to be in the Highlands or the Altos of tequila. So we're going to be covering what Highland tequila is, where it is coming from. I can't put my hands in front of this or else it'll beep at me and get mad. How it's made, notable brands and bottles. Those are going to be the notable things that we're tasting today, as well as then the 7-year cycle where you're going to lose me on a diatribe. So go ahead, first things first, we're going to taste tequila number 1. Well, there is this wonderful course called Bar 5 Day, right? Its predecessors are Bar Starts and Bar Smarts, which are online courses, all right? Now, what's really interesting about Bar 5 is anyone can take Bar Starts, anyone can take Bar Smarts. Wonderful education platform if you guys want to learn a little bit more about bartending, distillation technique, history of styles of alcohol, etc. But Bar 5 Day is that on steroids, right? So hundreds of people internationally apply to get into Bar 5. It's held once a year at the Culinary Institute of America, and only 65 applicants are then accepted into the program, which is amazing. These are the top tier mixologists, bartenders, brand ambassadors, spirit enthusiasts, you name it. If you're someone in the business world that also is inside of spirits and you're also just in the business of spirits, you really want to go to Bar 5. It is super exclusive, and I had the pleasure of going when I was 24 back in 2019 and got to complete the program. Through that program, we blind tasted through over 180 different spirits, completely blind, right? They were just inside of little classes, so we might be covering agave, sugarcane distillates, we could be covering vodkas, neutral grain distillates, whiskeys, etc. And we'd go through this training, and this is the tasting mat that we used for that class. So go ahead and inside of your little groups and out loud together, let's go ahead and start smelling tequila number 1. So if you remember from previous classes, we're going to start and not bury our nose directly in the glass. That's the fastest way to scorch your palate, right? So stay a little bit further away and introduce yourself to it. Ask it how it's doing today. Find out, what its work day looked like. Get to know this tequila. So what are we smelling? Go ahead and start marking things down on the aroma columns.
I don't see asparagus.
Yeah, if you don't see something, other aroma notes directly underneath everything, you can write it down there. Great place to take note. Mint, I'm hearing dill. What else? I heard asparagus. Asparagus is a
celery leaves.
Yeah, small celery leaves. cilantro-esque. Does anyone else get the skin of jalapeno peppers? None of the heat, it's just like if you scratch the outside of it. So go ahead and take your 2 tastes. The first one is just to kind of rinse your palate out, right? And then go back in and we're gonna take our second sip. We're gonna let it linger, hold it in our mouths, get our mouths to start to think a little bit. We're gonna then swallow or spit. That's what the little agave cups are for. Swallow or spit. And then breathe in through your mouth, exhale through your nose. What that's doing is it's pushing all of that aroma over your olfactory bulbs that are located just directly underneath our eyeballs. They are a little bit understudied right now in the scientific community, but they are very important, and they make up about what we perceive as 80% of flavor actually comes from aroma. So by exhaling through our nose, we are able to then really pick up much more of what we're tasting. Unripe melon, perfect with the rind still not ripe. I love it. That's
that bitter part of it too.
Bitter melon, vanilla and almond for sure. I get almond on the finish, like almond paste.
Interesting.
Texture of plum pit, grittiness. When it comes down to it, terroir. So the way that I define terroir is that this is a product's its taste and aroma being impacted by its growing location, its access to sunlight, temperature, the soil type that it's planted in, the quality that's then given to it, rainfall in a given season, and then also the hand of the maker. It is an environmental impact, right? And everyone that touches it has impact on this. So it is the idea that, and this is how I look at bottles when I look at our back bar here, this is not a collection of bottles, this is a collection of place and time and story and people and history and family tradition. It's a reflection of culture, and it's a beautiful collection then of stories that we then get to taste. And what's really beautiful today is we're going to taste and talk about story, all right? So when it comes to tequila and mezcal, in my opinion, when it comes down to these two products, these in theory can be said to be the most terroir-driven spirits, wines, beers of all time. Why? Well, if we look at it, tequila and mezcal can exclusively come from Mexico, right? And there are specific states that are then tied to each one of these individual products where they can be made. Tequila's got 5, mezcal has 11, arguably 13 states that should be classified for the making of mezcal. And also, there isn't need for barrels from another country. Most mezcales traditionally are not aged in barrel. Tequila, prior to Western influence, well, I guess there was always Western influence on it, but prior to mass Western consumption, because 90% of the tequila that is produced is consumed by the United States, when we look at it, most tequila comes out as Blanco, right? That's unaged or could be aged up to 30 days, practically speaking. Most of it in realistic practice, though, is only unaged tequila. So this is coming from a place, from a people that have been making it forever, that has not had any Western barrel influence on it, that is also then exported predominantly for us to consume, which is really interesting, which has to do with classism and a little bit of racism that goes on with the different groups that exist inside of Mexico, the indigenous groups, which are looked down upon, and then the wealthy elites, who then look at things and, you know, say, oh yeah, like we'd rather drink scotch as opposed to mezcal, because mezcal is from the Zapotecs, and they're the poor people from the mountains, and like, they're hillbillies, we don't want to touch their swill, right? But it's interesting when it comes down to it, because tequila and mezcal, predominantly, they scream terroir, right? So, when we are looking at the difference between the lowlands and the highlands, these are actually two terms that are not necessarily very indicative of the style of product that we get. We're here in Missouri at about what, Jared, I like the sunglasses. Poor guys just got to come in hardcore. When it comes down to the lowlands, we're in Missouri, we're about what, 1,000-ish feet above sea level. The lowlands of tequila sit at 4,500 feet above sea level. So we're already up, pretty significantly up. We're not quite like fully in the mountains, but we're there. I mean, there's some Ozark mountains that are pretty tall, right? And they suck to hike when you're tired. So I don't want to walk up 4,500 feet. What's really interesting about the lowlands then in the Matitan Tequila Valley, they're going to be more herbal, they're going to be a little more minerally, and the plants are a touch smaller because we need to consider metabolism, right? If something is colder, it grows slower, right? And it grows rounder. If something is in a hotter environment, it is going to grow faster and it's going to grow a little bit smaller. It might get a little bit taller, but it's still small, right? So when we're looking at lowland tequila, you know, anything from the Cascoin family, so any of the Siembrevales, the Lagrimas, the Cascoin Blanco right there, all of these are coming from the lowlands. Today though, we're focusing on the highlands. So, God, it really doesn't like it when I move my arm. In the lowlands, the soil has been overused a little bit and overplanted. It's a little depleted and it looks like smoke color, right? It's almost a little gray. Up in the highlands, it's super high iron content, right? So much that when it's dusty, you can take a magnet and go on the ground and literally pull the iron out of it. After it rains, you can actually see in the red clay, oxidized streaks of black. Kind of looks like tiger stripes, which is so pretty and really intriguing because we don't really see that much here in the Midwest. You know, farmland, it's great. So agaves though in the highlands, they started growing up there over a century after they started to be planted in the valley. And also they're gonna be much larger. They're gonna be a little bit sweeter due to that cooler climate. It takes longer for them to mature. So 6 to 7 up to 8 years in the valley. And then in Los Altos, the highlands, we are looking at about 8 years for those things to reach maturity, 7 to 8 years. Now this also leads to a fruitier and richer tequila. As opposed to the lowlands. So here's a great example. If this is Jalisco right here, so right here we are looking at the valley. Up here, we are looking at, damn it.
Oh, you were doing so good.
Right here, we are looking at the highlands. Now, if you've looked at a map before, a topographical map, you can kind of see them here. This is a much better map, but what we're gonna note right here is this lake, Chapala. If we look, here's Chapala the lake. If we look over here, we can see this is a much more mountainous region up in here. And the valley that exists right here is where the valley tequila comes from. Surrounded them by more mountains. I pulled my hand away and then it got mad. So let's go ahead as we're talking about terroir and let's taste tequila number 2, both smell and taste, and let's mark our aromas, let's mark our flavors, and let's see how much overlap we have, right? We have a call of smells much better. What else do you guys smell?
Orange.
Orange.
Yeah.
Or as they say where they actually come from, orange.
Green apple.
Definitely apple.
Green apple.
Green apple, apple for sure. Let's get the agave notes.
I have a dumb question.
Dumb question.
Is all tequila agave, but not all agave tequila?
Let's replace the word agave with mezcal. All tequila is mezcal, not all mezcal is tequila. So all tequila comes from agave. We actually will introduce our little friend over here. So this right here is our friend that tequila comes from. So this is agave tequilana. If this got to full maturity and got huge, we could hack off these little arms, which are called pencas. And then at the heart of it is something that looks like a pineapple. And then we could take that pineapple and roast it, crush it, and distill it. After fermenting it, of course. So this is what tequila comes from. And we're just gonna sit our little friend right here for right now, because then our second friend we're gonna talk about here in a second. Anyone else get white pepper? That's what I'm here for. Help lead you through this. Like lemon crumb cake as well. It's like a sweet cream.
I'm getting the sweetness, like maybe that's it.
Sweet cream.
Sweetness, but I don't.
See, like it's
not vanilla. But
this. If you go back and forth between 1 and 2, 2 is way more oily to me. Like it's more viscous, it's more round, it's more rich. So we are now going through the taste of the Highlands. What notes did you have from number 1 that carried over to number 2? I heard olives on both.
I think like the salty briny.
Salty briny, for sure. There's that mineral component to it. It doesn't taste like limestone, but it also doesn't taste like, I once had a sommelier say that like, there's a note of like plucking a fresh stone out of a cold mountain stream and putting it in your mouth. I don't get any of that here. It doesn't taste that clean, right? It's a little bit minerally, right?
the jalapeno carries over.
The jalapeno carries over. Now let's get to our fun little game to play. What do y'all think tequila number 2 is? Well, I've got really good news because Tav called number 1 right. This is Olmeca Altos Plata, so this is a Blanco tequila coming from the Highlands. This is a great, to me, this is like what I will put into.
So that was number one.
Yeah,
That was number 1.
this is number 1.
Okay.
So yeah, this is, to me, this is a great like easy introductory tequila. It goes great into cocktails. So well done, Tav, for disliking something and knowing it. Number 2, congratulations, you two. Proper call, this is Tequila Ocho Blanco. So what's interesting about Tequila Ocho is not only are they going after terroir, they are, hi, a little microphone, they are going after specific field terroir. So like in wine where it's like, we'll talk about, oh yeah, on this one valley we get so much more sunlight, which leads to a much riper and richer fruit, and on this other one it gets less, so it has to struggle and it's like more concentrated. That's what's really cool about Ochos, because every single time they have done a lot release, they will go through and they'll mark which estate it came from. They'll have the lot number on there, and it all comes from La Alteña Distillery, with Carlos Camarena heading that up. But, well, they just switched to a different distillery that they built exclusively for Ocho, but it used to come from La Alteña. So we are going to scan our way through. I'm assuming that most of you thought I was gonna go to Tequila Matchmaker. I'm not today. And this is what's awesome about Ocho. They have documented every single expression they've ever released, flavor profiles, where it comes from, exactly what this lot is and why it matters. So if you've ever wanted to have a really baller bottle to bring, most of us know Ocho, but if you're bringing a bottle to someone, you can talk to them ad nauseum about it and be like, oh, these are the notes that I know about this tequila. Just have it on your phone, and then towards the end of it, let them in on your little secret, right? Pretty crazy, right? So let's go ahead and jump into tasting tequila number 3, right? This is all about flavor today, so the more you contribute, the better. Potentially don't really like the smell of tequila.
I like the taste a lot. These smells are just not my favorite.
Hey, that's why we have cocktails.
Piney forest.
Piney forest.
Tiny, yeah, that's right.
All right, anyone else get like funk, like high school gym locker?
A little sweaty.
A little sweaty,
Yeah.
like in a musty way.
Yeah.
Now there are also beautiful things alongside of it. It's not exclusively must. There's also like fresh, bright lime peel. Like even like a candied lime I could see. You know, like key lime, where it's like, it's got that like, it's that key lime pie. I like this. Kind of smells bready.
Fresh baked bread.
Tart lemon custard, that's awesome.
Bowling alley.
Bowling alley, fuck yeah. That might be the most accurate representation of that funk note. Now, I love this palette. It is so big and so sweet. Olive brine, Castelvetrano olive, alongside of them like beautiful like nopales tacos, like cactus, like pickled cactus. Super cool. So while we're tasting, here are some beautiful pictures. Like we were talking, here's a piña up on the top left. I will stop pointing, I promise, one of these days. Piña on the top left. These are Blue Webbers that are at maturity in the field. If you can see that gentleman, those Blue Webbers are about yay tall on him. He's probably about yay tall. They're about yay tall on him, which is crazy. So those are reaching maturity. Blue Webbers are really interesting because historically speaking, they used to take longer to mature. Now they only take 6 to 8 years. The piña is like this portion right here. So when you hack the pencas off, you just get to the center. The pencas shoot out here. You can see them all cut off on the ground right here. If you look at our nice little shark skin agave right there, he can't be used for mezcal, so don't even think about it. But our shark skin, if we were to cut to the center of it, it would look like this little piña right here, just about probably grapefruit size, you know, a little softball guy. Any guesses on what tequila number 3 could be? That, all right, when you were checking off flavor notes here, are there many carryovers from the first 2? No. Why might that be? Because curveball, this is from the lowlands.
Whoa.
Yeah, so this is a lowland tequila. I wanted to throw this in here today. The reason for it, this is El Belo Blanco, so the valley. This is slightly higher proof at 44.5, so but not significant. We're not even like halfway to 50. And this is a lowlands tequila. So if we notice, there was a much higher, like aggressive minerality to this. There was more funk here, right? Marshmallow. And it was also just a little, it was different, right? The texture was different. Like it wasn't, to me, it wasn't as sweet. So go ahead and taste tequila number 4 though, and let me know what you smell and taste. This is Highlands, I promise. I'm not.
You wrote it down, you can't lie. Just hit it.
I get like sweet plantain, like if it's been like a fried plantain. Honeydew-esque, watery melon.
A salted cantaloupe. I'm in on that 100%.
Salted cantaloupe, watermelon, chocolate, and like the blue cheesiness. Do we like this?
Yes, dude.
Yes?
So interesting having that lowlands one before and coming back to this. Such a stark difference.
Yeah, stark contrast there. Yeah, I really enjoy this one.
Very soft.
Very soft. We're gonna talk a little bit about the 7-year cycle of an agave plant and kind of the intrigue that I have found behind this cycle. So in 1999 to 2003, there was, agave, because it is a 7-year cycle crop, goes through booms and busts, where more farmers than not will have either a lot more product on hand and ready to sell, or they will have a lot less product on hand. And because of supply and demand, because of capitalism, we see prices both skyrocket and just rock bottom. So farmer can make a fortune, they can lose their entire shirt. And if you guys would like, I would like to read a little excerpt out of Divided Spirits by Sarah Bowen. If you want to get into the nitty-gritty of the politics behind agave, both this book and then Agave Spirits by David Suro are 2 phenomenal reads. Now, why does this matter? Because when it comes down to plants and how they work, humans have influence on it, right? So when we're talking about the human influence on agave plants being planted, coming straight out of page 98, chapter The Heart of the Agave, some tales of success were even more dramatic, although harder to verify. For example, Jose Guadalupe Ortega, a 40-year-old farmer, told me about a person he knew who made it big. He was not very well off. He was broke. He was not rich, he said. Sometimes he wouldn't be able to drive because he didn't have enough money to buy gas. And this is how I know he was not rich. When the price of agave skyrocketed during a period of shortage, this man's fortune changed. Ortega recounted, this man had a lot of agave and he made millions of dollars. Dollars, not pesos, dollars. Crazy. He went from having nothing to being a millionaire. He got rich. Some people had a great fortune. There's a residential neighborhood in Guadalajara with very expensive houses, very nice houses, and he bought a house there. He goes back and forth between here and Guadalajara, and his kids are in private schools. This is coming from people who barely can afford to, once again, put gas into a vehicle. This is a life change that is massive. So when it comes down to it, for people who have happened to have a lot of agave that matured during the shortages, like the one that occurred between 99 and 2003 when agave prices reached 16 pesos per kilogram, the windfall could have been huge. But in most years, the reality was much less spectacular. Question? Messing with the hair. Love it. Hey, you gotta keep beautiful, I get it. I do it all the time. Me and my mirrors, right?
You know what I mean? Like,
You gotta go for it. You gotta go for it. So, another one of the farmers I met was Ignacio Guzman, a 56-year-old bricklayer with less than 4 acres of land inherited from his father. So Guzman had tried to cultivate agave in his land, but he was forced to rent his land to his cousin when his wife got sick and they needed money. He explained that tequila companies had refused to rent his land because his parcel was too small and too steep. Many of these producers have tiny little plots of land, right? So they're not working with huge farms. So when people refuse to buy their agave when the price is rock bottom, or if they're refusing because it's too expensive, they just put these people out of business at their whim, right? This is not like they're just picking up and supporting these farmers. These brands can buy from whoever they please. And also what happens when the farms go under, especially during a giant overage in agave, the land is cheap. Easy to buy then, as I would assume if I was doing business like that.
Can I ask, those standard kind of plots of for a family, how much does that even produce? Obviously it would be way less than
So if we go back, Blue Weber's really interesting because it all generally...
I'm curious, would that even...
So I'm not an expert on the actual agricultural production per hectare of field, but if you look, I'd say from here until those guys in the bottom photo, that's probably 25, 30 feet, maybe 40 at most. So let's say 40 feet. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 agave plants right there. If each one of those can make a couple bottles of tequila, we've got 28 liters of tequila right there. And if we're thinking at the current US market price of about 30 to 35 bucks a bottle, you do the math, there's several $1,000s worth of tequila right there. So, back into here. Onto the cycle though. So when it comes to the cycle, people remember times like the period of shortage between 99 and 2003 when agave farmers got rich overnight. But 2006, when I did these interviews, the tequila industry was again experiencing a surplus of agave. The price had dropped below the cost of production, and almost 20% of the farmers in my study reported a net household income of less than zero. So they're losing money that year over the previous year. Many farmers doubted that they would be able to sell their agave when it matured. They told me that tequila companies weren't buying from small farmers like them, or if they were buying at all. Some farmers had formed associations in order to better negotiate with the tequila companies. These associations staged massive protests from time to time, blocking the entrances to distilleries until tequila companies agreed to buy from them. But as in the past, they hadn't been successful in pushing for any meaningful changes, and the government wasn't doing much to help. Government's really interesting here because the government in Mexico, as we know, inside of tequila specifically and mezcal, gets bought off frequently. There are large corporations that like to throw large dollars, right? Which is part of the reason that we don't support celebrity endorsed tequila brands here. Because it's really quick and easy to get in when you're trying to make money with agave products when the going is good on the purchasing side, and then when it is not, it gets kind of expensive to operate and it really kills you. So the farmers themselves are not the ones that are getting the shit end of the stick. It's actually the individuals that are inside of the spraying of the pesticides, the ones that are there for pest control, the ones that are there to maintain the fields but aren't the humidors that actually have the coas, which are the metal, basically flat metal blades on the end of a stick that you use to hack off the pencas, right? The humidors can make like 900-ish pesos on a good day, which is about the equivalent of like 90 US, I believe, right? Am I correct? So on a good day, they almost make $100, which is still dog shit money. But everyone else involved in the process makes between 200 to 300 pesos. So like less than 30 bucks. Depending on the day. And those are the people that are being exposed to the carcinogenic chemicals that are getting sprayed on agave plants by the larger corporations. Those carcinogenic chemicals are also depleting the soil, right? Because they're coming out of a monocultural agricultural practice. Inside of agave spirits, if we wanted to read further into it, which I'll spare you the boredom because it's slightly long and it's a very heady research. Mexico had said that, you know, father plants of the mainland, like agaves, can't be genetically modified. They have to just exist naturally out in the wild, and you cannot use them inside of tequila production if they've been genetically modified. Well, back 15, 20 years ago, there were clandestine scientific laboratories that were going in and fucking with agave plants. And so what they would do is, back in the day, pre-2003, agave plants might take 9, 10, 11 years, Blue Weber specifically. We can even talk about the colonialism of Weber being a part of the categorization of that one specific tequila if you want to. But what they were doing is they were going in, as we've talked about in the past, agaves both replicate asexually like strawberry plants, where they send off little pups that are identical clones. Actually, if you look inside of the shark skin, you can actually see a tiny little pup starting to come up in between two of the pencas. So the itty bitty cute little leaves. That's its own little baby. It's an identical clone of it, of the mother plant. Now, what's nuts about that is when they send off these little guys, the hijuelos is what they call them, they're little baby clones that are identical genetically to the mother plant. And they're awesome because they're super easy to grow. You just cut them from the mother plant, keep them watered, keep them in the dirt, and you're good to go. You got another agave. It's awesome. I'm planning on giving those away to close members of the team eventually once I've got enough of them. But it's not any genetically diverse than that mother plant. So what happens when a little bug comes along or a little bacteria comes along, right? They've got a weevil problem where there's a little bug that'll eat a hole inside of the agave plant, and then bacteria and mold and fungus can get into it inside of this nice nurturing environment, and it kills the plant. So if you don't use the chemicals What happens? The bugs come in. The bugs then keep the holes inside of your agave plants. It leads to bacteria. Your entire field goes under. But what happens when you're too poor to buy gas? You're not buying pesticide, right? So you can't afford for that, so your field can get infested with all of these bugs. But if you're a larger corporation, you can spray as much chemical down as you want to. You can then create super bugs that are resistant to said pesticide that are then great at going and eating the rest of other people's fields. On top of all of this, these workers that are getting paid $30 to up to 90, $100 a day if they're really good humidors, they're getting exposed to all this shit all the time. And there's no health benefit that comes with this. There's no payout that comes for the cancer you're gonna incur later in your life. And also, we have to remember that inside of these fields, monocultural agricultural practices are happening. You can see if we go back to the agave slides, if you look, is there a single other plant other than blue Weber there that we can see, aside from the trees that create windbreaks to keep the plants from experiencing high wind? No. What do you think that's doing? Well, if we spend any time in agriculture, we know that those plants are sucking out specific nutrients. So unless those specific nutrients are getting replaced, and I'm sure they're not, that dirt's getting worse and worse and worse. Remember how we talked about in the valley that tequila plants have been growing there for 100 years plus above what the highlands were experiencing? They've been experiencing depletion down there for a long time, so the soil's getting worse. So unfortunately, if we don't start paying attention to what we're consuming and where it's coming from, we're going to start killing the dirt down there. Because as a white American who owns a business, I'm not about to go tell a poor Mexican farmer what to do with his field, right? That's not proper and that's not right. But we do know that those fields pretty quickly are going to become depleted resources, like truly depleted, gone. And then these tequila plants are going to be forced to stop to exist. Now, let's talk about those clandestine scientific sites for a moment, right? I'm referencing books of people I trust here who have got their doctorate degrees. So, and take that with a grain of salt. A lot of idiots on the internet these days apparently with a doctorate degree. I trust these guys though. When it comes down to it, the CRT, the Regulatory Commission on Tequila, back 15 years or so ago when they were fucking with agave plants and genetically modifying them, some of the brands were doing this in order to create agaves, blue Webers, that would send off more pups, more clones. So they wouldn't have to let these things go to seed and then propagate and then get genetically diverse plants. Some of them were actually trying to do the right thing and make them more biologically resistant naturally to bugs. And thus, the CRT decided that these plants can't be used to make tequila. There's still agave tequilana. They're still basically the identical plant to that. Unfortunately, we've not seen those plants come to light. That's what's happened pretty frequently. Like Tequila Matchmaker, we've talked about the wonderful app to look at how your tequila is made that used to have additive free. You'd have to pay for it, but you could get your brand stamped additive free if you went through their heightened testing process. The CRT removed that completely. They said, you're fucking with Don Julio and Casamigos. I'm calling you guys out right now. You're fucking with the big money.
Really?
100%. This was last year. Grover, the gentleman, he and his wife who had it, were raided under the premise that they were running a distilling operation. They had like itty bitty stills on site just for their own like personal tests and whatnot. They were not distilling and manufacturing tequila, but they raided them and took all their shit and their computers. So any information that wasn't backlogged on the internet's gone, right? This is what the big brands do. This is one of the reasons here at Fern Bar that if we're gonna carry any brand that's large in any capacity, we're gonna vet them, right? As best as we can. Up until this moment, I can promise you we have done as much research as we can and have time for on every single brand that's on the back bar. We trust what they're doing. Can I tell you that all of their workers have fair living conditions? I can't. I've not been there personally to every single one of these places, and I do not speak Spanish fluently. Jack and I would love to go though. Dee and I would love to go though, and go down and like actually have conversations and learn more. That also takes like getting this business fully successful, and we're almost there, we're getting closer. But when it comes down to it, we only support brands that support their people. Patron, we know, invest money in their community. We know they do things in a traditional practice. They didn't scale up, they scaled out. Same way, just multiply it, as opposed to getting bigger facilities and bigger stills and bigger ways to crush things. Fortaleza, makes a lot of juice. They don't make that much juice. Ocho makes a lot of juice. They don't make that much juice, and they're rotating their fields, right? So it's very important to know what you're drinking. And speaking of what you're drinking, tequila number 4, if you haven't guessed it already and seen me flip to that slide accidentally a couple times, is Cimarron Blanco. As far as I know, this is a Highland tequila. We've had a little bit of debate on this, but this is a Highland tequila. This is actually relatively affordable. You'll find this on our cocktail menu, and I think it's delicious. We've just tasted this. I would drink this over number 1 as a sipper, personally.
For sure.
Yeah, Team Cimarron. It's great stuff.
Isn't it like under $22 also?
Well, it's for a liter bottle too.
Yeah.
Liter bottles, like, I think y'all's cost 27-ish. So, under $1 an ounce. Like, you can have a drink at the end of the night and spend less than $2 to have it in your hand at your home, which is great. Now, don't do that math when you're drinking it here. It's a great price here. Paying for the environment and also this pretty face.
Before we move to the 5th one, I have a question based on all previous topics. So, based on where we've seen the trajectory of sales of that sphere, where it's going now, the height of the celebrity brands, but also the awareness of the practices. What is your prophecy like 5 years from now? Like, where do you see the
Well, we also have to talk tariffs, right? If the Trump administration's tariffs that are at 25% on goods that are brought into the United States continue to exist, Jesus fuck is right. Because here's the problem. We consume 90% of all tequila made. By doing this on this specific import, on alcohol, we're just making ourselves pay more. We're paying more to bring these goods in. This bar, very soon, will pay 25% more. Now, pretty soon, we're gonna release a little video if these tariffs do actually end up sticking for a second. We're gonna talk about the fact that, yeah, your cocktails are gonna go up by 25 cents. We're not trying to boost our numbers by 25%. We're just going to pass that cost along. We're not going to try to make extra dough off of this, because that's stupid and that's rude. It's gonna hurt our bottom line, for sure. But end of the day, COGS go up, we're not gonna go after profit. We're gonna make sure that y'all have about the same costs. When it comes to my prophecy and being an oracle on this, I'm not well informed enough. If I'm taking a gut check, and my gut for the most part has always treated me well, my gut says that we're gonna see depletion happen over time. We're gonna see mezcal is gonna go way more industrial in production. We're going to see tequila continue to get dumbed down. We're gonna see additives become more of a thing. I think within the next 5 years, mixtos are actually gonna go on the rise and become more popular. That's the one that you don't have to have 100% agave in it. You can use like beet sugar and shit and put that inside of it, and it's not delicious. And that's gonna be for affordability. Hi friends. Hi guys. How are you? And so I think that we're gonna miss out, honestly, like on a lot of products. I think there are gonna be a bunch of smaller brands that are dramatically impacted if they don't die completely. Because these small producers, like imagine if you're farming and you're distilling, and then all of a sudden like people are buying 25% less of your product, right? There's some brands that on this next menu, we are swapping bottles on a few of our classics because it's just too damn expensive. We can't continue to operate a business that works and also support some of these smaller brands in the same way that we've been doing, which sucks. I hate it, but it's necessary for us to keep in business. It's like my house and cars are on the line, my dog's food is on the line. Like I gotta keep my puppies fed, and that sucks. But it's the bitter reality of what's happening in the world right now. So, is the future bright? Yes, if. And the yes, if comes down to something that we have been working on for a little while in the background that you guys are gonna see start to apply to your checks pretty soon. At the end, a lot of corporations, when you've gone into Hy-Vee recently, I'm sure you've seen it, you know, when you tap to pay, round up for X charity, right? Sometimes it's a great way to offset taxes at the end of the year, because then you can make a charitable contribution and all of a sudden you've got less to pay in tax. It's not how it works for small businesses on the research that I've done and talking to my accountants and tax people and bookkeepers. It's passed through. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna partner with the Tequila Interchange Project. What they're doing is making sure that sustainable practices are getting put into place. So like, 10% of the agaves in the field being allowed to go to sexual reproduction, which kills them, by the way. But it ensures that bats can travel as pollinators, and these bats can then continue to move the pollination from agave. And also, they're not just going after tequilana, they're going after other espadín, they're going after other agave plants, bringing genetic diversity into these fields to keep these bugs naturally repelled and away. So it requires less pesticide, so it requires less chemical, requires less things to kill bacteria. And it's awesome, but it comes at a cost. And that's why we're gonna partner with them and start being like, hey, would you throw an extra 29 cents under your bill? Because if we do, let's say, I don't know, $1 million in sales. Like, we do $1 million in sales this year, and everyone rounds up just an extra percent right there. What's that, 10 grand that we get a hand at the end of the year to them? If we get 10 bars that are doing that, that's 100 grand. Think about what you can do in sustainability terms for 100 grand. It's not profitability, right? Sustainability. If we spend it in sustainable ways, we can continue to use it. So that's something that I'm really passionate about, obviously.
And you get to stick it to the pesticide business.
And I get to stick it to the pesticide business. Monsanto, go. See you. All right, anyways, tequila number 5. Cheers. Also Highland, I promise. Tapatio or Arete. It is sweet and delicious to me.
Guarantee you at this point then, if we're gonna look, it's
Those two are like claiming that this is Tapatio Blanco. This is crazy.
this is Tapatio 100%.
Juniper-ish. There's definitely like a little pine tree for sure. Like it's, to me, it's like on the aroma. It's like I'm smelling fresh pine that's been fresh cut. So good. Good call. Green apple. Yep. So green apple and black pepper and jalapeno are all 3 things that we've seen in Highland. I would also say celery probably belongs in there. It's actually why I love it a whole very much lot. This is Tapatio Blanco. So well played, y'all. Yeah, this is really, yeah, this is one of my favorite all-time tequilas. Carlos Camarena at Los Altos In, he makes this all time, like all time. This is like top 10 for me, no questions asked. Top 10.
You possibly got 9 ahead of it?
Yeah, I could have 9 ahead of it. We could, all time. I put this all time. This can go up there. Well, for me, this is an archetypical tequila. This is Highland tequila planting a flag in the ground and saying, this is what I am. This is what I'm here to represent. It's delicious and wonderful. Like I said, this is the same guy that distills Tequila Ocho, Carlos Camarena. This is just his house brand. Yeah. So this is their house brand. So if you enjoyed it, thank you guys so much. Let me know if you have any other questions. Once again, Spirits Distilled at Fern Bar. Thanks, guys.